Hello everybody, it's me, Pottery Demon here. I got another video for you guys. Things are going to be a little bit, I don't know, I'm really struggling to figure out how I want to, talk about myself in this, application that I'm filling out right now. So, I've been working on that, so I think today I'm actually going to be, this video today is actually more for myself. I just kind of want to figure this stuff out because it's kind of driving me a little bit crazy, so I hope you guys don't mind. I'm gonna really try to focus on getting all that stuff figured out and done, and you guys can kind of hear the way I talk about my work, and then you guys are gonna see me make some pots as well. So I'll be over there in a second. We got some Skyrim music in the background, so I think there'll be some funny images, but alrighty. Alright. So I plop this open here. And we're gonna set this right on the edge of my head cam. So you guys should be able to. Do you see what I see? Still this. I'm never gonna get over pulling my hair. I think one thing that I will get used to though is one day I'm gonna do this, and well, I always thought about maybe if I shaved my head, right? But I have a lot of goals with my hair, so I'm gonna keep it for a while. But man, it would probably feel so much better setting this head cam on if I just had a shaved head. All right, so this is gonna be over here for a second because we're gonna cut the clay up here. So what is in my eye right now? Is it just my hair, really? Oh, okay. So, again, going halfway down. Boom. Open that up. Yo, we got some nice tunes. I feel like I'm in a tavern, making my pottery. Oh no, oh yes, my pottery is with me. Do. So I'm cutting down now. Finished my teaching philosophy statement. I know they don't really. I'm trying to be concise and powerful with what I say. I think, my thing is always numbers. Overwhelm them with so much that they can't really, that's how I sort of let them know my ideology is just with numbers, but I can't really send them a bunch of stuff. So I'm trying to be pretty concise. But when it's talking about they want me to make a research statement. So I wanted to talk about parallel ideas. Maybe God sprinkles, but it is an art school, so I don't know if I should be, my idea of a God sprinkle isn't necessarily exclusively religious, but I don't want somebody to who doesn't like religion, to see my thing and just toss my thing across. But I think parallel projects is first and foremost. The idea of a God sprinkle, that comes next, right? And sort of the antithesis of my work, but maybe I'll just start by talking about parallel projects and see what sort of things I can. I'm gonna rewatch this and maybe write down some of this stuff. But all right, so here we go, guys. All right, so parallel projects, what are they? Why do they matter? Maybe I can turn this down a little bit. But it's this idea of keeping things so simple and bare minimum, right? For example, what I'm doing right now is an accumulation of some parallel projects, right? My actual practice of this online stuff, this is a result of that thinking. It's I said, all right, well, I'm gonna make a video every single day, right? And I was making the videos, and then all of a sudden I discovered the tree forms, right? These dragon flowers, and then all of a sudden, like, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna make a dragon flower every single day, right? And then I was like, well, I gotta make 3 of them every single day, right? And then I'm gonna make a pottery music edited versions. I'm gonna try to do like a nature walk, and then set that so I look like I'm in on nature throwing. Or then I did like video games. So it's like you have all these different little like one-off ideas that you turn them into this giant amalgamation, or it's like an abomination of multiple different things, right? And so that's a big part of what the Parallel Projects is, right? It's okay, I just got to a new place. What am I going to do? I'm going to make a cup for every single person, right? And then what are those things, what happens during that process, right? Maybe somebody gives you something and then you really respond with it, so then that helps you piggyback off your next idea. Or you have a one-off little conversation and you see your buddy making like a double-walled cup, and so you're like, you know what, I'm gonna just make a bunch of double-walled cups. How would I do that, right? And then you sort of tack these things on, and then you'll hit a limit, right? You'll hit a ceiling. Imagine you're like in this room. You'll hit a ceiling, and then all of a sudden, oh, I gotta make sure I peel that open. You hit a ceiling, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, dang, like, I can't progress that idea any longer. So you go and you start progressing another idea, right? And then, why is that not opening properly? And then through searching and trying out all these new ideas, you gain skills, right? Like skill points in a video game. It's kind of funny that we got the Skyrim stuff in the background. You gain skill points like in a video game. And then all of a sudden, you'll be able to achieve where once you hit that ceiling from another idea, you'll hit that ceiling, and all of a sudden you'll blast right through that ceiling, and you'll be able to just take that idea that you sort of held off on and just tack it on to this new idea that you were like developing, right? So then you have all these different ideas and you slowly push them forward like just like a train, and you just take them, it's a very long-term way of thinking about your projects, right? Because I have so many projects, right? Like I had that project where I was making those cups for businesses. I just like call my mug drops, right? And so I'm waiting to see like how I'm going to progress that idea, because I didn't have as much time to work with those. And so those will eventually come back in a new way, right? And it came back a little bit. I had an idea of like some people were telling me about this, like beer VIPs will sometimes get like a beer company. They'll get like a mug just for them, so whenever they come in, they can drink out of that mug, right? And so that's something that's kind of cool that I want to explore hopefully one day, right? And so I only got revealed to that because I paused that project and I was working on other things, right? Because I couldn't progress it. I didn't feel the impulse to progress it, right? It's not being lazy, because you have to redistribute that energy into another thing. And then eventually these things come back, right? And you have to be open to it, because sometimes you might not even want to do that project anymore, but you got to listen to it. If it feels like it's necessary, you got to set your feelings aside sometimes on that and allow it to progress, right? And so that's a lot of what like parallel projects are, right? It's like even these forms, it was once these like sort of weird swirly vases, and I didn't like the swirls. So then I put that away and I did a bunch of cups, and then all of a sudden the cups led me to think back on, you know what? Maybe I got to try a different way of throwing, and then that's what really developed these trees, right? Or the dragon flowers. I keep calling them trees now because I was so used to it, but I really do want to start calling them dragon flowers. And I think I could really that's like the antithesis of a lot of my work, though, is this idea of parallel projects. So I think I could just probably talk about that for like a whole page, and maybe I'll give an example. We'll see. Opening that clay up. I don't know why it's so hard for me to make these or do these sort of write these writings, right? I wish it was like the old days and they just invite me in and be like, well, let's see how you do. And then they test me like it's a test. I feel like I would eat it up if somebody just like took me on the merit of my work. Yeah, but that's not really how it is now. You gotta be so good at selling yourself. Alright. Here we go, we're in. Keep that a little bit looser. A little bit of a belly on this pot. Maybe this will do something cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open it up a little bit. Kind of like how that looks. What else about my work? You know, I kind of want to be an anti-potter. Like, I actually hate pottery. There's nothing more in the world that I just like the actual, like the way that pottery's going. I really just don't like how it is, right? I don't like how fixated it is on this final object. And it's never even about the process anymore. It's always just about the way something ends up. There's just like this, I almost think it's kind of frustrating how fixated people are on it, right? And so I think something that would be really nice is if I could get people to start thinking about their work in a totally different context, right? Like it's kind of about, you know what, we're gonna cut this one. It's more about like these moments that like right now, every single video that I record, this is the only part I like about this, even the ceramic process. Everything else to me, I think it's terrible. I don't like it. I think it's like a waste of time. But this part, I could do this all day. Alright, set me on the wheel, maybe with some music, maybe not, right? It really depends. Give me a steak, and I'd be just living if I could do this all day. But you know, you can't do this all day yet. Check that up. Flap these things up here. But it's really about these moments of where the material is talking to you, like right through, it's transmitting its like knowledge to you, like what it's thinking through your hands, right? Like as I'm working with it, it's telling me and it's informing my next decision that I make. It's informing my reactions, right? And that's really what pottery for me should be about, right? Like if it's all about the form, you know, like it's so distant, I think, right? And some people can attach all sorts of narratives and set all sorts of fun things, but then I think it's not really about the clay anymore. It's about something that it's depicting, right? And even though these things are trees and dragon flowers, what I really want to show you is like the possibilities of the wheel, right? There's so many possibilities. It's such a rich way of making, and that's all it is just a wheel spinning. It's such bare bones, simple, you know, like clay and wheel. You know, there's obviously a lot goes into the clay that I'm throwing with, and like the mechanics of the wheel, but just a wheel turning, that idea of the wheel turning and me manipulating it, right? Like it's just such a low barrier to entry understanding of like making. Oh, what the heck? Did I set that on there? I didn't even know I did that. It's so funny. Alrighty. Push this down. And so part of it is like why I have none of these things fired too is first, I don't have a kiln. But second, you know, I have them like this because it's pretty difficult to try to be this idea of an anti-potter, right? These flower forms, they're just kind of skinnier in the middle and the bottom and really wide on the top. That's like opposite to a lot of like vase shapes that I see, right? They want these nice gooseneck freaking pots with like little narrow bases, right? So that's already opposite. People want these smooth, like glass-like objects, right? I like this gurgling, right, of the form, right? It's like I had a teacher say it's like I'm torturing the form, like the clay. I always thought that was like one of the coolest ways that somebody's talked about my work. You know, and a lot of people, they get so fixated on color nowadays too. Like they throw everything but the kitchen sink at the freaking glaze, and so you got all these like just vomit cups, right? And I can see when people are talking about excess, right? And we live in this, there's lights everywhere, color everywhere, it's so much excess, right? And they're talking about data overload, all these other different things. But again, it becomes not about the clay anymore. It's totally just, it's the vessel just becomes this thing to like set stuff on top of, right? It's like this, it's like the last thought, right, is like the actual form that something takes, right? And even people, they'll say like they'll make a form that maybe is kind of wispy, but it's not exaggerating or talking about the process on the wheel, right? Some people use extrusions to get almost like these wispy forms that I try to kind of get, right, with these dragon flowers, but they do it through extrusions, and it's just like you're not talking with the clay. Like my work is about the wheel. It's about you on here, you know, like working through your ideas. You go to the wheel with questions, right? And you go to it trying to find your answers on form and trying to like really understand material and tame it, right? It's like this battle that you do every day, and it's just, that's really what like a lot of my work, like the form of it takes, right? It's not really about the shape of the dragon flower, right? It's more about like loading an object and clay with potential and seeing where it goes, right? And people say, well, you've been making the form for, you know, who knows how long. Well, or a little bit more than half a year now, right? But what I'd say is that you really think that you can understand a form in a couple of weeks or a couple of months? No, like really, if you really want to understand something, it takes long hours. We're just kind of trained to believe that everything is so fast-paced and so quick in today's society. I mean, look at all these modern artists who are doing these kinetic performance, right? where it's like they have a bucket of sand that tips over, and like that's the piece, right? Or people jumping on a trampoline and making a mark, right? It's all about this immediacy, but nobody's making work about this. Well, there is actually some people who make work about this, right? But the long grind, the not fun, the torturous place of just like doing the same shit, right? And it's not like it's like a job for me yet, right? Like, you know, some people would say, well, that sounds like my job, right? Well, you're getting paid for your job. Literally haven't sold shit. I'm not really gonna sell these yet, but I'm just saying, like, I'm doing the thing. I'm doing this, right? Do the thing. Do something that you wouldn't even get paid to do, and you'd still be okay with doing it, right? That's kind of like my mindset with these forms, right? And I'm also thinking, like, if I make a form that is not really, you know, these aren't really vases, you know. It's kind of fun to make a form that nobody's really looking for, nobody really wants. Oh, great. Alrighty. Get some of that water out of that center there. People just need to be, well, not people. I just want to discover what I can do with my life if I really devote myself to an ideal, right? I want to see if I can do it hardcore enough where I can become my own idea of what a legend would be, right? It's like a Batman quote, right? Always is running through my head. The Batman's talking to this guy, and this guy just says, well, when a man devotes himself to an ideal, he becomes something else, right? And Batman goes, what does he become? And then this guy says, a legend, right? Oh, I don't want to be just a human anymore. I don't want to, that sounds weird. I don't want to be human. I want to be a legend one day, right? And people will say, well, who cares? You're not going to, you know, whatever. You know, I don't really care. Because in my mind, I'm already there. I'm already past that point. I see myself sometimes at like a podium giving an artist talk about shit, right? They're inviting me out. Noah Zerpoli, what? Maybe not that elaborate, but I'm getting invited to these places to talk about my life's work, right? I already see myself in those positions one day, and that's all I'm doing now is just putting in the work for it. Oh, what the... A little weird, but we're just gonna go with it. This guy, David Goggins, he said one time, you know, he's like, you know, one day there's gonna be a day where I'm judged, right? Whether it's God or something's gonna judge me. And he says, whatever you believe in, you know, the mind's too powerful to just cease to exist, right? And I'll subscribe to that idea for sure, right? Whether it's God or something, I know something's gonna judge me one day, or I'm gonna have to sit with, you know, I know that I'm gonna live for, you know, hopefully approximately like 80 to 100 years, right? I know that, right? If I die sooner, you know, that's fine, but maybe what I'm trying to say is like, I'm living now. I'll know I will live until I die, right? And that is something that's fact. But what's not fact is something that's afterwards. So like, what if you have to spend eternity, right? Like literally the rest of time, right? After you passed, knowing and like having to live with all the thoughts and the efforts that you spit out during your lifetime. Can you imagine if you wasted your life doing some shit that you didn't really want to do, or you didn't really apply yourself or really try to get after it, and then for the rest of eternity you have to deal with the fact that you just didn't take life and just really squeeze every ounce of juice out of it, right? I think I would go crazy, and I think that's my biggest fear. I'm not scared to die. I'm scared to die knowing that I could have done more, right? And I think that's the key too, is there's no end, right? I call this idea your forever struggle, right? You just want to do something until there's no end. There's nothing left, right? That's all it is just something that you just decided gives you enough value to just do it the rest of your life. And I found that a lot of people don't find that, and I'm just gonna keep on getting after it. And that's, I think, also what my work's about, right? I finally found something like ceramics. I like I said, I hate this shit, right? But I found something that really, I think, has like value to me. So you know what? That's all I needed. I'm doing it for the rest of my life. No questions asked. Doesn't matter to me. I'll just do it all the time. You know how cool it's gonna be when it's just something that I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it, right? 50 years from now, oh my God, it's gonna feel so good when I can just be like, yeah, here I am now, right? And who knows where I'll be? Maybe I'll be famous somewhere. Maybe I'll be in the not famous. Maybe I'll be dead. But the result of my work will still exist past my life. And if anybody else in the world has any thoughts that are similar to mine on the way that like life is, and they're trying to get after something, and they're trying to find some level of value, and then like they want to devote their life to an ideal like that, maybe I can help guide them through that somehow, right? Or maybe just my act of doing it is helping those people. Wow, look at that. That's so cool that it's just right on my chest like that. But just the act of me doing this every day, right? Maybe that could motivate somebody to freaking just get after it, right? That'd be the dream. And what's really cool now in the digital age is that somebody like thousands of years from now, they can also listen to this stuff that I'm doing here, right? They could listen to this, and then maybe they'll connect with it some way, right, or another. They can hear my voice, they can see my work, they can listen to my thoughts, they can see the progression over years and years and years. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool to me. Calling that top off. I cut a little bit too much clay off on this one on the inside here, and I got a ring on the inside that I actually cut off, which felt really weird. There you go. Okay, down at the bottom again. I guess I can finish with the God sprinkle stuff. But the God sprinkle is this idea of, imagine there's jars. You enter a room, and it's a room full of floating jars, and everywhere you look, there's just a floating jar, right? And that's every single moment in your life. You enter a new room full of these jars, and every single second that you make a decision, right, you pick a jar, right? What I'm saying is that that act of picking the jar instead of just letting these things move by, right? Really focus, and if you like think about these jars that you're picking, sometimes, they'll lead to these very unique special moments in which I call the God sprinkle, right? All these jars are filled with sprinkles, and every moment you pick your jar and you open it and you pick out a sprinkle in it, right? You might pick the right jar, right? But maybe it didn't have but you didn't pick out the God sprinkle in it, right? And so an example of this was one time there's this gatekeeper, right, at the school that I used to go to, right? And this gatekeeper, he opened the gate for me all the time for like almost 2 years, right? And I thought in my mind, I was just like, all right, well, you know what, Mr. Gatekeeper, you're gonna get a mug, right? I felt that impulse was calling me. So me sensing that and wanting to do something, that was me reaching out and picking the jar, right? And so I went there and I found it, and it ended up being his last week, right there, because he was going to go to like Israel and do some missionary stuff, right? Well, it ended up that he asked another potter for a cup for his son, right? To like with his son's name on it, right? But the potter didn't have time to, and he was getting ready to leave, so it ended up not working out for him. But then, all of a sudden, I come there with a cup, and he told me this whole story about his son, and like his son was adopted from some country. Now he's back in that country, like trying to teach the new young generation of people, and just a really beautiful story, right? And anyway, he was saying that even though it didn't have his son's name on it, my cup encapsulated that for him, right? And the fact that I got to supply that thing that he was asking for, and it was a totally random instance, the chances of that happening are so rare. And it all started because you decided to do something, right? Like you decided to create a moment. You took the effort and the time to reach out and grab that jar, right? I picked out that sprinkle, and that time it ended up being the God sprinkle. And what's so crazy is after he left, there was a woman named Deborah, right? And Deborah, she like would open the gate for me, and she always wear these nice like fancy glasses and stuff, and she was always really, really kind to me. And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, you know what, I gotta get Deborah something, and I go, and then they say, well, oh, today was Deborah's like last day, right? I was like, what? And so they ended up calling Deborah, and she got her mug. I really didn't get to talk to her, but you know how crazy that is? That 2 times I had the impulse right at the right moment, right before these people were leaving, right? How freaking, it's so cool to me. I think that is like, it's gotta be like some of the coolest stuff that's happened in my life is through these moments with ceramic and objects, right? This pot is wearing a crown. So that's sort of what the God sprinkle is to me, right? It's all about just really placing placing possibility and placing potential into your life. And you know, the crazy thing is that I also think that my pots that I make is all about placing potential, like these little moments for potential to sink in all over the pots, right? And so there's the last one, guys. Alrighty. There we go, guys. Let's move this. Let's go over to my thing here. So funny. Yeah, I can bring this one actually. Seems kind of interesting. Thank you for watching. All the best. Strong mentality. Peace.